I'm just trying to size you up all over there. Is this going to be a quick approach or a long
I hope
approach?
it'll be quick. Thanks, Jim.
Okay, you guys, Mr. Pedicus, go ahead and entertain them for a second. Starting point, knock it out. Ask for the full show, ladies and gentlemen, Jerry.
Yes, she does. She does.
That shit seems like that.
She had to see you smile. Right, so when it's like that, she goes, and then, it was an expensive surgery.
But it's not supposed to give this.
Have we yet?
You want to see it right here once we're.
You get like morning, then late afternoon. Is that true?
You chicken out?
No, I didn't want to get it on.
You didn't get it on camera?
No, next one. I'm confident there'll be a next one.
Okay, let's call your next
Your Honor.
witness.
Thank you.
What?
I need a moment. I know.
Okay. How long's a moment?
60 seconds. Thank you.
I'm not going to make you get up for 60 seconds. Okay? No, he's not. They've been trying to get him to juggle. I'm not going to subject the jury to him juggling. We don't have a protective glass in front of him anymore, so.
There's implied consent.
Okay. Sorry, Your Honor, I apologize.
Okay, you ready? Call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state would call Sarah Burnham to the stand.
Standing and raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. Please be seated and you can make yourself comfortable. You need to scoot in a little closer. And you'll be so kind as to state your name for the record and spell your name, please.
Okay. My name is Sarah Marie Burnham. It's SARAHBURNHAM.
You guys hearing okay?
Yes.
Okay, proceed.
All right.
Snooker?
Thank you. Ms. Burnham, where are you from?
Here in Columbus, Ohio.
You've lived here your whole life?
Yep, born and raised.
And what is it that you do for a living?
I work for Ohio Health as a phlebotomist. I have
A phlebotomist?
Yes, I draw blood.
Do you mind spelling that just in case for Sam here?
I believe it's PHLEBOTMIST.
Okay.
Yeah, phlebotomist. I
And-
might have spelled that wrong, sorry.
Do you mind explaining to the jurors what a phlebotomist is?
Yep, so basically I go around, I get an order from a doctor to draw blood tests, and then I go and I get the test from blood, or get the blood, put them in tubes, and then take them down to the laboratory.
And how long have you done that?
Since 2016.
Okay. Now, you said your last name is Burnham.
Correct.
What's your maiden name?
Castle.
So then are you related to Miss Sandra Castle?
Yes, she is my paternal grandmother.
All right. And back in 2018, how often did you see your grandmother?
2018, probably like on a monthly, bi-monthly basis. I had just had my son in January of that year, so we weren't able to get over as often as what we normally did, but it was still pretty regularly that I would see her.
And what types of things would you do with her?
Just go over for dinner. I take my kids over to go visit with her. Just visit. I mean, nothing really out of the ordinary. We'd sit around and talk. Just things like that.
What do you remember most about your grandmother?
Probably just how much she loved having a family, being a grandmother. I was her first. I was the first grandchild. So she just was very doting, very loving. Just remember her enjoying having a family. That was probably one of the most important things to her.
Now, in 2018, was your grandmother hospitalized
Yeah, several times.
several times? Do you know what types of ailments caused her to be hospitalized?
In 2018, I do believe she had a pacemaker installed, so she was having issues. She had AFib. She had been diagnosed with AFib, but she had a lot of comorbidities. She had obesity. She was diabetic. She had kidney issues. She had COPD, among the list of things. So.
All right. And how about November of that year? Was she hospitalized?
Yes, the first instance that I was aware of, she had just went into the hospital because she had been having tremors, and so they were trying to go to find out why she was having those tremors, and I believe that was right before the hospitalization that resulted in this.
So this was not her last hospitalization that you're currently speaking about?
Correct. Yeah, it was prior to her last hospitalization.
Do you know what date her last hospitalization began?
It would have been November 9th because it was the same day that I had my wisdom teeth removed.
Okay.
So that's how I remember.
And how did you become aware of the fact that she was in the hospital?
I had awakened in the middle of the night because I had gotten home from my procedure, went straight to bed to sleep off the anesthesia. So it was probably about 2 or 3 a.m. when I woke up to a text from my father, who lives in Florida, but he had texted me and let me know that they had taken Grandma by squad to the emergency department at Mount Carmel.
And you say 1 or 2 a.m. on the 9th?
No, it would have been the 10th then.
Okay.
Because she was taken in the night of the 9th, which was Friday night, and then so it would have been early Saturday morning when I received the text.
All right. And then what did you do next?
So then I let my husband know. We were able to arrange to take my children to my mother's house so that we could go and visit my grandmother in the hospital just to kind of visit, but also see what situation she was in. I was also going to see if my father needed to come up as well too, just to kind of judge the whole situation that she was in.
All right. And then what did you find when you got to the hospital?
She was intubated. My aunt was in the hospital with her when we arrived, my husband and I. She had cooling blankets on her, and from my understanding, they were doing therapeutic hyperthermia because they were unsure if she had a cardiac issue or if it was a brain issue, so they were just trying to, I guess, policy was to have that therapeutic hyperthermia.
And how long were you there on that day?
An hour, 2 tops, just long enough to see that her condition wasn't good and that let my father know he needed to come up from Florida ASAP.
All right, and then what happened after that?
After that, you mean as far as that day or?
Yes, if anything else happened that day, either while you were in the hospital or otherwise?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, we had a staff member come in and was taking care, but didn't really say much to her, ask besides, why the cooling blankets, what that was, and that's how we, discovered they were cooling her down for the protocol.
Okay,
And-
you gotta help us out because you started talking faster there.
Sorry.
And I didn't know if she got it, and you
Okay.
were moving your hands, and you got quieter.
Okay.
Remember what you just said?
Talking about how there was a nurse that had come in and basically we were asking her about the cooling blankets and the therapeutic hyperthermia, but that was about it.
Okay.
And you said your aunt was there at the time?
Yeah, my Aunt Debbie.
Was there anyone else there?
Not that I remember. I don't know if my uncle may have came while we were there, but I definitely remember my aunt being there.
Okay. And then that was on the 10th, correct?
That was on the 10th, correct?
All right. Did you return at all on the 11th?
No.
What about the 12th?
No.
And what about the 13th?
The 13th I did, yes, because that's the day that we were told she was being extubated.
You were being told by who?
My father had called me and said that they had located her advance directive and that they were honoring her wishes and taking her off the ventilator. So they had planned around, I believe, 3 o'clock for all of the family to gather there so that we could say our last goodbyes, and then they planned on extubating her after.
Okay. Do you know what time you got to the hospital then on the 13th?
It would have been between 3 and 3:30 because I had left work that day and typically got off around 2 or 2:30, and I had worked up at the Grady Hospital there in Delaware.
All right. And
I'm sorry, what hospital?
Grady Memorial in Delaware.
what did you observe when you got there?
When I first walked in, we were all waiting to go back, so I just walked into the waiting room and met up with my aunt and my 2 cousins, Ashley and Bradley, which are her children, and then Bradley's, I believe it was his fiance at the time, or maybe his wife, I think it was his wife, Jamila. And so we just sat there, waited for more family members to come, and then we're waiting on to be told that we could come back.
Okay, so you're waiting in the waiting area at this
Yes.
time. And what happens next?
So then everyone arrives, we get taken back. It's probably maybe about an hour after I got there, so 4:30 we were back there. We were told that they were going to extubate her, so they came into the room. All of us were still in there. We were not asked to step out, and they continued to remove the tube from my grandmother with all of us in the room.
And were you present for any of the conversations regarding termination of the ventilator or anything like that?
No, I wasn't there for any of the conversations. I just got all of the decisions secondhand from my father.
All right. So after she was taken off of the ventilator, what happened next?
So then basically my family just sat there and continued to watch her deteriorate a little bit. Everybody kind of started getting tired of just sitting there and for a better term, I guess, watching her die. So everybody slowly said their own goodbyes, trickled out, and then probably by about 8, 9 o'clock maybe, we were down to myself, my father, I believe my aunt was still there, my grandfather, my uncle Donnie, his wife Diane, and I want to say my Uncle Doug was there as well, and that's about all that was left around that time.
And between the time that she was extubated and you said 8 o'clock,
About 8, 9 o'clock, yeah.
did you see any medical staff take care of your grandmother at all?
Yes, yeah, I did see two nurses that were there, at least that I remembered, that were coming in and administering medication to her after they had extubated her. One of the nurses, I believe her name was Stephanie, and then there was another gentleman that was there. I don't remember his name, but physically he was probably like 5'7", 5'6", a little bit on the huskier side, had short brown hair, and they were kind of going back and forth. Stephanie would come in and give medication, and he would come in and check vitals and just kind of update us on her condition, because they had shut the monitor off after they had taken her tube out. So they were monitoring her at the nurse's station and would just kind of come in every so often and update us on her condition.
And you said they administered medication?
Yes.
Did you have any conversations about what medication was being given?
I know a family member did ask at one point when they were injecting the kind of small clear vials what they were giving her, and they were told it was morphine that they were injecting.
Okay. And so it's about 8 o'clock, then what happens?
So pretty much we had talked to my grandfather and my aunt, and we had talked my aunt into taking my grandfather home, since he had been there pretty much every day since Friday, and we really didn't think he should be there to watch my grandmother pass, so we discussed taking him home. Probably I'd say around like 9:30. Everybody was gone except for my father and my uncle. My grandma started breathing irregularly, kind of what they refer to as the death rattle. So secretions were kind of building up, and she was breathing through it, so it was becoming louder. My dad was getting distraught, kind of, begging for her to take her last take her last breath, begging for her to pass quickly, asking, just in general, is there anything we can do for her? Or, he was just very distraught, just at watching her pass like that.
And he said these things. Was there anyone in the room besides family members when he said this?
Medical staff would come in. I know Stephanie would come in every now and again and would be giving morphine and stuff like that. And I know at some point, my dad at one point was sitting on the side of the bed that they were injecting the morphine, and at one point we had switched so he could come to the other side and I could be on that side as well, just to kind of give him a change of scenery, I guess.
All right, and did you or anyone in your family approach medical staff asking for anything or asking for any comfort care?
Not to my recollection. I did not. I didn't witness my uncle or my dad either, so not to my knowledge.
Did you see any signs that she was in any pain?
To me, no. She just she was unable to hold her head, so her head was over to the side, kind of propped up by pillows. Other than that, she was real stiff. Her mouth was open. But as far as like grimacing or reactions to pain or anything like that, if you would hold her hand or you would, squeeze her nail bed, she wouldn't have any kind of reaction to it. So in my eyes, I did not interpret her as being in any kind of pain.
All right, and did you have any interaction with Dr. Husel that evening?
Yes.
Can you please tell me about that?
Probably about, I want to say it was around 10 or the 10 o'clock hour. He did happen to come into my grandmother's room. He had another, I don't know if it was an attending, another staff member with him. Basically just talked to us about her death rattle, how loud it was, being able to give her something to quiet the death rattle, to make sure she's comfortable. That.
And had anyone gone and talked to him prior to this, to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge, no.
What happened after he came into the room and said this to you?
So we discussed it. We accepted and agreed that, she needed something to make her comfortable for the death rattle. So I'd say maybe 20, 30 minutes later, Stephanie then came in. It was a large vial, and it was filled with white, clear fluid, or not clear, white, kind of viscous, cloudy fluid. She administered a little bit of it, paused, and then administered the rest.
And you say large. Do you know about how large it was?
To me, it looked like it might be like a 20 cc or 30 mLs, like not like the smaller standard syringes that I'm used to using when I draw blood.
And you're familiar with the sizes of syringes because of your employment?
Yes, correct.
And why is it that you noticed this particular syringe?
Just the size. Everything before that had been pre-measured. Like, I don't know if they're little pre-measured morphine vials, but everything was a lot smaller. She was able to carry like 3 or 4 in at a time in one hand, and this one, it was rather large. It was the only one she carried in, and it was a good amount of this white fluid that just kind of stuck out against anything. So going from those small sizes to that very large syringe was definitely something that stuck out.
Prior to walking in, did the doctor tell you what they would be giving her, or did Stephanie tell you what they'd be giving her?
No.
Now I have what's marked as State's Exhibit 28A. Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
Can you please, for the record, tell us what this is?
So this would be a 30 ml syringe.
And is that the size of the syringe that you saw Ms. Lachard use?
It looks very similar to it, yes. Yeah.
This isn't the exact one, to be clear, correct?
Yes, this isn't the exact one, correct, but it was about that size, yes.
Okay. And after the medication was administered by Ms. Lachard, what happened next?
So then we just kind of sat there and watched Grandma. Her breathing became more irregular. She would have periods where she wouldn't breathe, and then periods where she would. And at one point, they were sitting there coming in and checking her vitals every so often just to monitor her. And I believe at one point, she didn't take a breath for about 3 minutes, so they went to go in to listen to see if they could call it, and she took a real, like a gasp of breath, and then kind of continued to breathe, and then that would become more and more frequent, her long periods of no breathing.
Did you notice anything else about her, other than her actions, anything about her appearance or anything?
Her fingertips had started to turn blue. She got the blue forming around her lips. I know at one point the other nurse, not Stephanie, but the male nurse came in and told us that her O2 sats were like in the 50s, so that she was kind of slowly deteriorating.
And how much time, you said they would come in every couple of minutes. So how much time from the administration of that medication was it until you were told that she had passed?
I'd say probably about a half hour, because they came in, it was close to 11 when they administered it, and then it was, I believe, 11:23 when they pronounced her. So I'd say maybe 30 minutes after administration.
First of all, I'm not sure if this is on. I'm going to show you here what's State's Exhibit 12A. Can you tell me what this is?
It's a picture of my grandma, Sandra Castle.
Thank you. And at the time that this happened, when you were there with your grandmother, was there anything that was odd to you about the situation?
Not really. No, I mean, it just appeared to me like she was taken off the ventilator and was progressing, I guess, as normally as I had seen.
And you said as you had seen.
I never had actually seen anybody die up close. She was my first person I actually saw die. But to me, it didn't seem anything out of the ordinary, I guess. I mean, I knew that death rattle occurred when people were dying. I mean, I knew that was a thing, but other than that, I don't really think there was anything to me that stuck out.
And you're speaking about the death rattle. Was that something that was upsetting to you and your family?
I think my dad might have been more distraught with it. I mean, just because that was his mother that he was watching kind of die in a horrific way, which, you know, we did not want her and she did not want to die. But no, I mean, it didn't really strike me as odd or bother me. No.
Were you bothered by the size of the syringe?
I definitely remember just kind of thinking like, wow, that's big. Yeah, I mean, because it definitely stuck out in my mind. I mean, we just went from the small little pre-filled ones and then all of a sudden jumped to this huge syringe full of medicine. So it did, that struck me as odd. That's why I still remember it.
Your Honor, do I have permission to show the jurors as a demonstrative purpose the syringe that I presented to her?
No, if it goes back, they can see it then.
All right, thank you. No further questions.
Cross?
Good afternoon. Diane Menashe on behalf of Dr. Husel. Are you still a phlebotomist?
Yes,
Just want to make sure that I'm clear. Fair to say as a phlebotomist, you do not administer medications.
correct,
You draw blood.
correct.
So it's from that perspective that you were talking about some medical terms during your direct examination. Is that fair to say?
Correct, yes,
As a phlebotomist working in healthcare, I'm assuming that you're aware of day shift and night shift times.
correct,
Night shift starts at 7 p.m., does it not?
correct.
Your, Ms. Castle was extubated at 16:42. Does that time sound familiar to you?
Yes,
And 16:42, that's military time. Would you agree with me that that's 4:42 in the afternoon?
yes, I would.
So she's extubated, and the decision is made because of her advanced directive during the day shift.
Correct,
So then we have the night shift beginning at 7 p.m.
correct.
Do you remember how when the shift change took place, there was a change in nursing staff?
Yes,
You mentioned Stephanie. Stephanie was the night shift nurse that was there.
that is correct.
Fair to say, and I take it from your testimony that Stephanie was tending. She was present.
She was present, yes.
She was in and out of the room.
Yes,
If there was a time when you needed her, she was accessible to the family.
yes,
And so much so you actually remembered her first name, it seems like.
yeah, she was very personable with us, very compassionate. She even, after my grandmother had passed away, when we were leaving, had taken the time to come over and hug and cry with us. So, yeah, I was very touched by it.
And then I want to talk about, in terms of timing, your testimony with respect to the syringe. I know you don't administer medications, but I wanted to make sure I wrote down what your testimony was. I think first you said in the syringe it was cloudy, and then you indicated that it was white fluid. Is that accurate, what you said in your direct?
Correct, yeah, it was white, cloudy, viscous fluid.
Would it surprise you to know that fentanyl is completely clear?
Sure, yeah, I wouldn't know.
Then let me ask you this. Did you know that 30 minutes plus or minus before the fentanyl was given, that glycopyrrolate was given to help with the death rattle and the secretions. And that medicine, would it surprise you to know, was clear.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wouldn't know that either.
But do you remember that there was first some medication given as ordered by Dr. Husel for the secretions and the death rattle?
I remember discussing that being the reason that we were going to give the medication to her was to dry the secretions that would help with that death rattle, yes.
And at this point in time, we've got the extubation at 4:42. We're now nearing 11 p.m. at night, 10, 11 at night.
Correct.
So long that you even testified on direct that some family members, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, were getting tired of waiting and it actually left at that
Right.
time.
Correct.
And so the family members in support were narrowing because it was taking many, many hours for Ms. Castle to pass. Is that right?
Correct.
And I know it didn't bother you according to your testimony, but fair to say that your father was quite disturbed
Yeah, he was very distraught watching the way that she was dying, yes.
by the noise, right? It was loud.
To me, it didn't seem loud. I mean, I was sitting at the bedside with her. My father was on one side, I was on the other. It was loud, but I wouldn't say it was, I wouldn't say it was something where you'd have to put earplugs in or, would be a high decibel or anything like that. I mean, it was, to me, it was a normal level, I guess. I mean, I didn't have anything to compare it to, but it wasn't anything that was, like a jackhammer hitting a pavement or something like that.
But there was a death rattle.
There was a death rattle, yes.
And I know how the impression it left on you, but in your opinion, the impression it had on your father was that he was very disturbed by it.
Yes.
And even fair to say, when he first saw the ventilator, right, he was disturbed that there was even a ventilator, even period, right?
I don't know if disturbed would be the right word. I think angry would be a more appropriate word, just because it was well known she did not want to be on a ventilator.
And I know, and I know you were asked about this in your deposition, and your father's reaction when he first saw her. You mentioned that there was some concern or frustration, you mentioned that he was upset and frustrated with the fact that his mother was on life support because she had been clear that she didn't want to be on life support, period.
Correct.
Not just that she didn't want to remain in a vegetative state, she didn't ever want to have a tube and be on the mechanical ventilation, right?
Correct.
And your father, based on your observations and knowing of the situation, very well knew that about his mother.
Correct.
And I know you talked about her prior health conditions, but I just wanted to kind of go back, if we could, a little bit. She had some serious health conditions for some time.
Correct.
And I know that you listed them, the COPD, she was morbidly obese. I don't say that as a criticism.
Right, yeah.
She obviously, the dysfunction in the kidneys, so the failing in the kidneys, and she had taken a bunch of medication that was giving her some side effects as well.
Correct.
And then she had the surgery on her lower back. And when you were talking on direct examination about her coming into the hospital, I just want to make sure that I understood. You're aware, are you not, that she actually came in on the 9th to Mount Carmel West. She was released on the 10th, went home, and then 4 hours later actually coded and then was brought back. Did you know that?
That would have been on that Friday, which I believe was the 9th, was when she was in Thursday night into Friday morning.
Okay.
And then Friday morning is when she was released, and then that Friday night is when she was brought back to the ER.
Okay. But it's within a 24-hour period that she's actually released, goes home, and then she codes.
Correct.
And then she's brought right back
Correct.
to the ER and then ultimately to the ICU.
Correct.
When she coded, was she given CPR, if you know, at home?
I do believe she was given CPR. I believe she was shocked as well, too. I do believe they had to shock her several times to get a pulse back.
And this was even before she was just brought back to Mount Carmel West the last time.
Correct.
I just want to go over a few things and then be done. With respect to your conversations with Dr. Husel, I know you talked about those on direct, but the conversations with respect to Dr. Husel were about providing medication to provide comfort to your grandmother. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And then your testimony is that medications were given once or twice, but medication was thereafter given. Is that right?
Correct, after the discussion with Dr. Husel, yes. I'm sorry?
Can you repeat your answer?
Oh, yes, after the discussion with Dr. Husel, that's correct.
And I just want to make sure that in terms of Dr. Husel's, presence, he came to the room to check on your grandmother, did he not? And indicated that the reason he came to the room was because of the death rattle.
That is correct.
And the noise that it was making, and then there was the discussion about medication that could be given.
Correct.
Prior to that conversation that took place, the decision to palliatively extubate your grandmother was during the day shift and had nothing to do with Dr. Husel, correct?
That is correct.
And if we just talk about 10 or 11 p.m., the night shift beginning at 7 p.m., there's 3 to 4 hours before Dr. Husel even comes to the room to speak with the family.
Correct.
One moment, Your Honor. A few other questions. One moment, Your Honor. Just want to find something if I could. You were asked some questions about what, if anything, you saw in terms of, I know you said grimacing or agonal breathing. Just want to go back. You were deposed in this case.
Correct.
And during your deposition, if you recall, you were asked if once the vent was withdrawn, if your grandmother was ever breathing on her own. And you remember you saying you didn't know?
I believe so, yeah.
And then you were asked if you witnessed her heaving or gasping, what they would call agonal breathing, once the vent was withdrawn. And you indicated back in your deposition on 12/18 of 2020, I believe so. Do you remember saying that?
Yes.
So there was agonal breathing.
Yes.
And there was a lot of phlegm, as you said, during your deposition.
Yes.
A lot of sounds coming with her.
Yes.
And though I know you testified about whether it was pain, did you not indicate that she had a lot of jerking motions as far as her head and her neck and the way she was breathing?
Yes.
And then you said you did see that.
I did see that, yes.
And this went on into the night?
Yes. I didn't interpret it as pain, though. I just interpreted it as normal for her situation.
And when you say normal for a situation, and I don't mean to be crass in asking this question, but because we've never experienced the process of dying, would you agree that none of us know if it's really painful or not?
Right. I would not say I know if it's painful or not.
Nothing further. Thank you, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Your Honor.
I just want to...
Sorry?
Reproach.
Sure.
We need to calculate something.
Your grandmother, had you all accepted the fact that she was dying?
Yes.
And the noises, this death rattle you were speaking of, you were in the room with her the entire time you were there, or did you leave it all?
No, I was there with her the entire time.
And you didn't complain to the nurses about the noise?
No, I did not personally.
Did you want your grandmother to be comfortable as she was dying?
Yes.
Did you want her to be euthanized?
No.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Move to strike that.
Strike, disregard the last question and answer.
I'll withdraw. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay, let me step down, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's all the witnesses the state had today.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay, let's talk, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Let's let her get out the door, or out the area. If I misstate something, it's my understanding you have a couple witnesses tomorrow morning. One witness tomorrow morning, and that'll be your last witness.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay. What's going to happen tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, is the state will finish their last witness. At that point in time, we'll have to take a recess for a while. I've got some judges' stuff to do with this case. Okay, so it's going to take the better part of the afternoon. So you'll just be in the morning for the one witness, and I'm going to probably have you excused for the rest of the day, and we'll continue back up on Wednesday. Okay? And there's just no way I can solve that problem. So I'm just being honest with you. You know, you might be able to make afternoon, well, don't make afternoon plans, because knowing my luck, it won't go that way, but I'll have to do some stuff tomorrow. So it may be a while. So instead of you sitting back there the rest of the afternoon, I'll probably send you home and we'll get started back on Wednesday. Okay? Any questions? Okay. David?
All rise.
Have a good evening, guys. Remember the admonition. Be safe. At least we'll have the smell of the coffee in the morning.
You're gonna get a cup.
Yeah. Okay, you can be seated. I just felt it was appropriate to discuss that with the jury. We're going to be the afternoon going through exhibits and motions, so I couldn't see keeping them here. I'd rather have them fresh the next day instead of waiting back in the room.
No objection from the state, Judge.
Any problems from the defense?
No.
Okay. Anything for the record there, Ms. Blucher?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Benassi? Anything for the record?
Yeah.
What would you like to discuss?
I do think that the comment that we discussed at the sidebar with respect to this witness and what she said, that it's my understanding that when she was being interviewed by the prosecutor's office, and I'm sure they will correct me if I'm wrong, but she indicated that Dr. Husel had told her and the family that he would be willing to provide comfort, medicine that would give comfort, but a side effect could be that it hastened the death. I think that's actually Brady information, and so I would just say that we would never disclose that statement. I understand that the state has indicated they intentionally didn't elicit it, because obviously the statement comports with our theory of the defense, that he actually indicated side effects, and that they still wish to proceed forward. I would just put that on the record that we weren't given a summary of that statement.
Okay. I'm concerned about the allegation of Brady material. I'm trying to figure out how it's Brady material.
Well, how it's Brady material is that here's a doctor that's saying, I can provide comfort care, That would be my goal, is to provide comfort care.
That isn't what was said, but I understand you have to make an inference from there to get there.
I don't think you have to make a difference from there.
He says he can give her comfort, but it'll hasten her death.
A side effect would be that it would hasten her death. That's the doctrine of double effect.
Okay?
So, I do actually, okay, well,
I'm still not getting there.
okay.
Okay? I'm trying to understand because, as I understand this case so far in the testimony, it's down to intention, and you can call whatever metaphysical thing there, but it's still down to his intention at the administering of the dosage.
No, it's intent and causation.
Yeah?
Okay. It's both, right? And he has to intend to hasten the death, right? And then the
Well, he
medication.
administered it knowing that it would hasten the death is what that statement says.
Well, that's the doctrine of double effect, Your Honor, is that it's like, talk about the biopsy surgery that goes bad and then she bleeds out. One of the patients in this case. Sometimes you do things, and if your intended goal is X, and a consequence other than intended goal Y happens, that's the doctrine of double effect.
No, I disagree with your analysis there. I'm trying
Okay.
to get there. I'm not giving up on the issue on it. I don't think it's Brady material. It would have been nice for it to have been disclosed ahead of time, okay, because I think I'm going to get an attempted recall. But, okay, anything else to the record?
No, Your Honor, I mean, this was something done during trial preparation. I assume, and perhaps wrongly, that the man sitting next to them can tell him what he said to things, so I don't see why anything that people say he said should somehow obligation, oh, did you know your client said such and such and such and such? And we did, which is our right, which under the rules is, we do not solicit from witnesses his exculpatory statements. I mean, we do that in every case where, as is our choice. So it was just Ms. Menashe's questioning and the witness answering part of what he told her, which is not what we intended, which is not what we solicited. I felt for completeness, that witness, that the court should be aware that there was a second part to that statement. That's why I disclosed it.
For the record, Your Honor, the brother did indicate that conversation happened, but of course the state chose to present their case as they're completely allowed to do. And so I had no indication that this witness knew of that conversation. I just put it out there. We have the ability to subpoena witnesses. Of course, we don't have a burden of proof, and so I like to cut down on that as much as possible because we have no burden whatsoever. I will say, though, with respect to that, this issue that was addressed today, we do intend to address it in our case in chief. I have issued a subpoena. We intend to have the witness up there to play the tape, ask her to identify herself, and mark it.
Okay, are we talking about something different than the last witness?
We are, Your Honor. I just am circling up on witnesses that we intend to call in our case in chief.
Okay, so we got a witness you intend to recall. Which one?
The woman from this morning, Beverly Leonard. So,
This morning?
I'm sorry. When I said this morning, Your Honor, I meant
You're talking about
the
the woman
video
with the
and the pill bottle. That's correct, Your Honor. I served a
And you
subpoena.
tagged her with the subpoena?
I did, Your Honor, and we filed it as well. Just wanted to be transparent about that, and I told the state in advance of me going to serve her. I personally served her.
Okay. Any objection?
No objection to them personally serving anyone, Judge. I thought you were still deciding on what to do on this.
No, I'm still working there.
All right, so I just, the only objection I have is Ms. Menashe assuming she's making decisions for you. Thank you.
I don't think that's was her intention.
Well, I mean, you say, we're going to figure, I still have to think about what to do on this, and she's just telling you what we're going to do on this. That would be my only objection. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else to the record?
No, Your Honor.
Let's get started at 9.